guys, my name is KJ Messick. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and more specifically, welcome to the Jesus Girlies podcast, episode 3. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Thank you for coming back. I'm super excited about our topic today because I think it's going to be super beneficial for so many people watching. I get this question all the time on my social media, and that's why we're tackling it. But before we dive in, would you take a second, drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, hit the like button. It helps more people see and find the Jesus Girlies podcast, and hit subscribe if you want to keep watching the Jesus Girlies podcast. It would mean so much. Let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in, and we need to talk about today, like I said, a very, very frequently asked question, and that is, when I become a Christian, do I have to completely stop hanging out with anyone who is not a Christian? Like, literally, people ask that all the time. And so we're going to tackle that today with scripture. And we're going to tackle that with some wisdom, some life experience that I've had over the years. I'm just going to share what I think about that. And then also we're going to answer the question, how do I make and keep good Christian friends? I feel like I get that question a lot too. So today's topic for the podcast is just all about friendship as a Christian. How do we do it? Who do we do it with? And how do we find good community? And the first thing I want to say on this topic is you will become the same as the people you spend the most time with. You're influenced by the people you hang out with. My mom used to say, or my grandma even used to say, show me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. So the importance of finding good, solid friends obviously is so key. But does that mean we have to completely stop hanging out with other types of people that are different than us? I would say very simply, this is a totally fair and really important question, but it is a very case-by-case situation. And let me explain what I mean by that. If you are a Christian that has been walking with Jesus your whole life, you have a super solid Christian community, you have really edifying, what I mean by that is like encouraging, uplifting relationships that are pointing you back to Jesus. You're going deep in the word with your friends. You're talking about Jesus and your friendships are centered around Jesus. I believe that it's okay for you also to have friends who don't believe the same thing as you do, as long as you're approaching those relationships with a level of vision for what you're trying to receive out of those relationships and give to those relationships. What do I mean by this? Well, in scripture, we see Jesus constantly hanging out with people who were totally different than him, that were totally living a different lifestyle than him. And these people were often referred to as like notorious sinners. So these were like known sinners, people who were living lifestyles that did not at all match up with the way that Jesus was living his life. It says in Mark 2:15, while Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples. So tax collectors were those notorious sinners because they were known for actually stealing money from people, manipulating people, and they just were not known as great people in that time. And then obviously it says, and sinners. They were eating with him and his disciples. So he was there with his community, with his people that were walking with him. And then they were there at someone's house who was obviously not walking with God and was known as a sinner in that community. When the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with the sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? So the Pharisees were the religious people, the religious Jews who were very known for following all the rules and all the regulations that were laid out in the old covenant. Verse 17 says this, on hearing this, Jesus said to them, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners. For one, we see that the religious leaders are the ones that are attacking Jesus and his disciples for spending time with people who are other than they are. You know, I think that it is a bit of a religious, quote unquote, mindset to just live by these rules. Can I still spend time with them? That's why I said this is a case-by-case basis, because in some cases, you might be mature enough in your faith to actually be able to go into those situations if you have a mission and a vision and spend time with people that you used to spend time with, they're doing the things that you used to do, and you're able to go in there and not do those things anymore, and you are able to have the strength to live a totally different life. versus if you're a new Christian and you just got saved out of some sort of addiction, like a drug addiction or a party lifestyle or things like that, you should not go back into relationship with people who are doing the things that you are actively trying not to do in your walk with Christ. Like, that is like the least wise position that you could put yourself. And what I oftentimes see is people who think that they're further along in their maturity and their ability to resist the old temptations. And so then they're like, oh, I'm going to go in and I'm going to show my old friends how much I've grown in my relationship with God. Like, I'm a totally new person now. And then they hang out with those people for literally 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden they're totally backslidden. They're back in that lifestyle and they don't know how they got there. They thought that they were strong enough, but in fact, they were not strong enough. And so I think that it's really important. That's why I say we can't live our lives based on these strict, hard rules when it comes to things like this. I think that within Christianity, there are really clear guidelines on certain things. This is not one of them. We see Jesus actually setting this example of going and spending time with people who were known as sinners, who were living a totally different lifestyle than him. And when the religious leaders, the ones who want to make a rule about it, come in and say, why is he doing this? He's kind of breaking those rules. Well, he's doing it with a purpose and with a vision. And so what we see in verse 17, it says that Jesus said to them, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, quote unquote, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. So we see Jesus strategically referring to himself to these religious leaders who are trying to, catch him in breaking these rules. We see Jesus referring to himself as a doctor. So what I take out of this is that Jesus sees himself hanging out with these sinners. He is actually going into those places to call those people who are notorious sinners out of their lifestyle and actually bring healing to their lives. That's what doctors do. They are in the business of healing people. And so Jesus is putting himself in this position saying, I am going in as a doctor, and it's not the healthy who I need to spend time with if I'm on a mission to bring light and to bring healing. I need to surround myself with people who actually are sick. So I would say that Jesus, when he is spending time with the people who are not walking in the same lifestyle as him, he's doing it with a vision, he's doing it with a purpose, and he's doing it with a mission. He's also not doing it in isolation. It says in this passage, he was there eating with his disciples. He was going in to bring and call those people out of their lifestyle into holiness, into his lifestyle, and calling them to walk with him. That these notorious sinners and the people that he's eating with are not the people in his inner circle. These are not people that he is constantly spending his time with. That's why it says that Jesus came with his disciples. They came in together to bring a different way of living to these other people. So what we're taking away from this, it's not like you can't spend time with people who live a different lifestyle than you and are maybe notorious sinners, but it is coming in with strategy, coming in with a community, with support, with your Christian homies who are going to hold you accountable. It's coming in with a different purpose, a different vision, and a different mission. And when Jesus went into these spaces, he always came in to call them higher. He always came in to set an example of a different way, and he never ever fell into sin. And so I think that, of course, I'm not going to tell you that you can't spend time with people who are not Christians, because that's absolutely not biblical. But I do think that there's a level of wisdom and discernment that you need to have when you are coming out of that lifestyle. You need to know whether or not you're ready to go back into it, and whether or not you're able to withstand the temptation of the things that you used to partake in. So that's the answer to the first question. And so here's the second question. If you come out of a non-Christian lifestyle, what do you do then when you become a Christian and you're not ready to go back into those spaces and hang out with those old people because you're not strong enough to withstand that temptation? how do you find community? How do you not just become a loner and isolate yourself and never hang out with anybody or have friends? Here's a couple of really practical things that you can do. Here is a couple of really practical things that you can do to make and keep Christian friends. Okay. So, number one, you need to find a church. Find a local church or a local worship gathering that you know there will be other like-minded people there, people that are around your age. You need to literally position yourself somewhere that you can find Christian community and Christian friends, because your life and your faith depends on it. I promise you, trying to follow Jesus in isolation it's not biblical and it's not possible. And yes, maybe for a season it's okay to really focus in on Jesus if you're just in the beginning of building your relationship with him, or if he is strategically placing you in a season where it's just you and him. But that is not the way that you're called to live your life in an extended period of time. Get your season with Jesus. Go deep in the word, go deep in prayer, go deep in Bible study, but then get connected to community, because it's not sustainable to live your life as a Christian outside of Christian community. Okay, and then the second practical thing that you need to do if you're trying to find Christian community is you need to get initiatory. Initiatory just means that you are taking responsibility yourself for having the life that you desire. All the time, we're going to get into this in a minute, all the time I hear people being like, well, there's just no Christian community. There's just nothing around me. I'm like, have you really tried? Have you showed up week after week, introduced yourself to people, been like, hey, I don't have very many friends. I'm trying to make Christian friends. Can we get some coffee? Can we hang out? Do you want to have a Bible study? Can we read together? Can we listen to worship music together? Ask them where they like to eat. Tell them you're going to pay for their meal. And drive there, go pick them up and bring them. Basically force them to be your friend, because I promise the more initiatory you are, the more people feel loved and they're like, wow, this person genuinely wants to be my friend. But girl, you need to initiate. You need to text them. You need to follow through. That's just a part of being a mature person in the world. Literally, you're not going to have any of the things that you want in life if you can't learn to be initiatory. Stop waiting for people to come to you all the time. Those are the practical things. Number one, find a church, find a small group. Number two, go to the small group, make a friend, ask them if they want to hang out, and go pick them up and go hang out with them. Girl, you just got to make it happen, because you need to stop waiting for the world to come to you. Okay, the spiritual side of making Christian friends. So we're just going to go in right now. I want you to promise me you're not going to get offended, because I might say some things in this section that might ruffle some feathers. Maybe you feel like, you'll relate to some of these things. And I definitely have been there, though, for all of the things I'm about to say. So this is coming from personal experience and love. So I just want you to know I love you, and I'm trying to help you make Christian friends. So number one, prayer. This is so simple, so basic. I don't need to expand on this very much, but the amount of times I have literally felt so isolated and alone, and I just was like, God, I just need a friend. I need to be in Christian community. I want so desperately to have other women in my life that are leading me closer to you and that are in love with you and are challenging me and holding me accountable. I need those things. The moments that I have stopped and just told God, I want that, and I desire that, the way that he has provided those things for me in my life is absolutely insane. He wants you to do life with other Christians, and so he is going to put those people in your life. You're praying in according to his will scripturally. God is going to provide those things. And that's a biblical promise. So number one is prayer. Number two, like I already said, initiation. Sometimes it doesn't feel that simple, so that might not feel that helpful for you. But we're going to dive a little bit deeper into why sometimes initiation is not that simple and it doesn't actually feel that easy to us. I think sometimes we as Christian women, if we have been burned before in the past by Christian friends, we can kind of get this chip on our shoulder, and it can be this thing of I don't need anybody. I'm good. It's just me and God. But you can tell when someone says that there's a bit of an edge to it, and you're like, girl, but why? Were you hurt? What happened to you? And oftentimes I feel like things, if you really were to go there with that person, they would have things to say about how they were burned by people in the past. And a lot of times when people are burned by people in the past, it causes rejection. It causes this open door spiritually to the spirit of rejection. And when the spirit of rejection comes in, it can oftentimes manifest as playing the victim. So when somebody is hurt and they get burned, they feel rejected, they can put up these walls of like, well, I don't want to get hurt again. And so then it can cause them to isolate even more, causing them to feel more bitter toward people and more isolated. And it's just like this vicious cycle that happens. Here's the thing. If you continually find yourself thinking these things of like, I can't trust anybody, everybody's out to get me, everybody hates me, no one probably really wants to hang out with me, like I've been rejected in the past, I'm just going to be rejected again, I can't trust anybody, you probably have an open door to rejection and you've maybe taken on a little bit of a victim mentality. But if you continue to allow rejection to take root in your heart, you will have the same patterns in your life. You can maybe sometimes like actually make people feel like they are rejecting you when they're not trying to. Woe is me is kind of the attitude, and it's time to grow up out of that because God has amazing Christian friends and relationships for you on the other side of that. And if you continue to allow rejection and the victim mentality to rule your life, you're going to be missing out on everything that you actually are desiring in your life. And the relationships and the fruit that God has in those friendships. Okay, so if you keep making friends and then losing them, you should really ask yourself this question. Do I have something that's continually getting in the way of these relationships succeeding? Like if you find yourself consistently losing friends, and you know, people are maybe ghosting you or acting like they don't want to be around you or not inviting you to things, you should ask yourself and be honest with yourself. Like, is there something that you need to get freedom from in your life? Is there a stronghold that's getting in the way of the amazing relationships that God has for you? And it's really mature to get to that point where you're able to say, this is no one's fault but my own. There's something that's hindering me from making and keeping good friendships, and I need to get free of that. Okay, so some of these things might be, like I just mentioned, rejection and victimhood. It could be isolation and withholding. And then the last thing to think about is, do I have an open door to comparison and jealousy? Like, is that standing in the way of fruitfulness in my Christian friendship, specifically with girls? I think that that's a really common thing, and people can kind of feel it when you're comparing yourself to somebody, or like when you're jealous of somebody. Like, and so if you find yourself avoiding people, thinking edgy things about people, or criticizing people, you might be struggling with comparison and jealousy, and those things are actually just really rooted in insecurity. So it comes to a place where you have to actually get freedom and recognize, like, I have some stuff going on. I don't believe that God has the best for me. And so I'm looking at other people and criticizing them because I'm jealous actually of what they have. So those are the things that I just wanted to bring up today. Those are maybe some reasons that you are struggling to find Christian community, Christian friends. And I hope these things are helpful to you to think about and to talk about. And I hope these tips will help you make some friends. A lot of it is so practical. But then, yeah, if there's something going on deeper that's like, man, I have a hard time consistently keeping Christian friendships, you need to go with the Lord and just hash those things out. And I'll make another video at some point on freedom, how you can find freedom from these things. But really, it just starts with repentance and walking out in the opposite spirit. So if you find yourself isolating, initiate with someone, text someone. If you find yourself feeling rejected, ask someone practically, hey, I heard you guys are doing this thing. Can I join you? I'm trying to make more friends. People are so willing to have you around, and you need to break free of all of these lies in your mind that are keeping you isolated. And so that is it. I hope this video helps you. If it did, go ahead and drop a comment below. And I'm so excited that you guys joined me today. But we will see you next time. Thank you guys so much for being here. Love you so much. Have a good day.